Right. All right, this is lesson 13, and it's the conjugation of a me, the personal pronoun. He calls it down here a copulative verb, but it's also called a being verb. And it's similar to the English I am. And here we have lege, autois, humes, de, tenad, me, tena me. You would probably pronounce this right up, butted up against the tena, because it's enclitic, there's an accent mark lost. Legete, and I. And of course, the a me, this is the infinitive form of a me, and I is. So right here, the conjugation of it, the root is S, so they put it on the root, and this is a me verb. It's a me, and it's I am, and then it becomes a, and then there's your root right there with this one. It lost the root right here from some of the rules. It lost the sigma here. You see, the circumflex above it tells us that we've lost some letters. It's like our contraction in English. Then your S, that's your root again. S, and S, and then again, we lost it again, okay, by the rules. Down here, again, you see the circumflex up there.
Yeah, brother, quick question, if you don't mind. So, a nigh on that first phrase at the intro there is the infinitive then?
Yes.
To be.
To be.
But why is it translated as I am? Why wouldn't it be a me?
Okay, let's go through the verse then. Matthew 6, it's a good question. Lege, autois, we'll get autois in this lesson. So I say, or he says, I say, third person, he says to them, this is them, all right, you, humes, that's you plural, but they, this is post-positive, remember day is post-positive, so it goes over here, but you, and this is a question of who, it's an interrogative pronoun, who, me, you all say to be, okay? And that'd be you plural, you say to be. Now, here, this is me is, and we'll get this in this lesson too. It is the accusative case form of me. Okay, I think we have it in this. Let me make sure. Right.
You already said it at one point, actually.
It's the accusative case form. We're going to get it in this lesson. It's the accusative case form of ego I, the pronoun I. Okay. All right. The first person pronoun. Accusative singular form of it. And here's the thing that we need to remember. The subject of an infinitive is always in the accusative case. So the Greek language is very powerful. What they'll do is they'll take a nominative case noun and use a finite verb. This is a finite verb. A finite verb is limited as to the person or number. Okay, person and number. For instance, a me is a being verb, first person, singular, second person, singular, third person, singular. This first person can't refer to second or third person. It's singular, it can't refer to any of the plurals. So it's limited. But an infinitive can take all persons and all numbers. That's why it's infinite. See? Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. So this is a finite verb, and it carries its own subject with it. He says to them. To them, this is dative case, plural. You, but you, or but who do you say me, me to be? That would be kind of literal. Who do you say me to be? And me is it is accusative case we just saw a moment ago, and it becomes the subject of an infinitive. The infinitive takes its subject in the accusative case. So we can take a finite verb, have it doing things. Its subject is a nominative case noun or pronoun. And then we can take an infinitive and its subject will be in the accusative case. So the direct object can do something, the subject can do something, and then the direct object can do something in a complex sentence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of.
So the subject of an infinitive is always in the accusative case.
I see. Okay.
So that's when he says, I am. Me to be would be kind of literal. But you say you, this is who mays, and who mays is always emphatic. We'll get to that just in this lesson. It's always emphatic. But who do you say that I am? Okay, I am. Me to be. Who do you say me to be? That would be pretty literal, right?
Okay.
So that's the subject of that infinitive. The subject of this verb is the subject of the sentence here. It's unstated. It goes with the ending. It's third person. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions? Any others?
Nothing. Appreciate it.
Okay. A me. Now, different verbs will take their subjects in different cases. Now, if it is a verb that's we call transitive, there's intransitive and transitive. Transitive verb has to have a direct object. That's what a transitive verb is. And so if we have a transitive verb, its direct object is always in the accusative case. Right? If its object's not in the accusative case, it's not transitive. Transitive doesn't have to have an object to complete the thought. John ran, and that's okay. John ate might not be, because that word could be intransitive. You might have to say, well, what's he eating? Or John hit. Now that's transitive. It has to have an object. Whether you're waiting, what did he hit? See?
Gotcha.
And so that's transitive. It has to have something to make it transition, or to make it complete its transit, or to complete its action. Okay. So a me is not a transitive verb. It's not a transitive verb. It is a copulative verb or a being verb. You might call it a being verb. And they're called copulas or linking verbs. Right? So a me, I am. And so this is I am. Now, we also have, because it's a verb, it has a pronoun with it. We have the word I, ego is I. We're going to get this in this lesson. That's first person singular. Right? And so if I said ego, a me, that's very emphatic. Right? A me, I am. And it could be a whole sentence in itself. However, a me is an interesting verb, but there's 2 or 3 verbs like it. But it always takes, and you might put this in your notes, its object is in the nominative case. It is a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective. It takes its object in the nominative case. It'd be a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective. I am king, say, or I am president, or I am, you could just say I am, name your wife, I'm her husband. I am, name your child, I'm John's father or Bill's father, or whatever your child's name is. And so That would be in English, a me. So its object is going to be in the accusative case. Let's go back up and look at it. We have an infinitive form of it. So we'll have to have another sentence to see it, okay? All right. A, notice we lost part of the stem, the root. There's your basic root. We see it there, and we see it down here. And then it got absorbed here, and the first person is the me verb. So it has the nature of a me verb. This course probably happened because there were many dialects, and sometimes one of the words in the conjugation came from a different dialect sometimes that'll happen, but most of the time they follow the rules. But these got absorbed. You can see something was dropped off by that circumflex. Okay, we'd have to go back to our rules and see it. All right, Eston, it frequently will have a new on the end of it because the next word will have a vowel, for instance. The next word may start a vowel, begin with a vowel, in which case the new would be there. That's your movable new. We've had that before, I hope we have. But it's like I ate an apple. That wouldn't be good English. You say I ate an apple, so we put an N on the A, and so we'd have I ate a apple, right? Okay. Eston, so frequently have a movable new on it. Esmen, and so it's like omen ete, omen, see the men ending, and it's a me verb, so it has all the rules of a me verb, right? And the rules we just learned in the last lesson. Este, and I think of ete in the last two letters kind of fit. The men fits. That's kind of helps you remember it. AC, they are. Ani, that's two syllables. Ani, but it's got two diphthongs in it. Two diphthongs. That's your infinitive. So they are, you are, we are. I am, you are, he, she, or it is. And again, you'd have to pick this up, whether it's he, she, or it from the context, what gender it is, and so forth. But you know it's third person singular. That's that much you know, being verb. All right, now who's it going to be referring to? Well, whoever it is going to be in the nominative case because it's going to take its object in the nominative case. Any questions? Now, the subject of this infinitive will be in the accusative case. Me is the accusative case. All right. A copulative verb, and so it couples or links. And right here we have ego, and that's probably our English word ego. I'm pretty sure I looked that up one time, come from that word. He has an ego, he's a big I. Pharisaios. And now what happened here, it may have two accent marks on it because it may have pulled it from the word after it. But when it pulls it from the word after it, usually what it'll do if it pulls it from the word after it, the word after it will be enclitic and lose its accent mark. So normally we don't have a double accent on these words. It's not normal, okay? I want to see if that's a mistake in this. I don't think it is. Acts 23:6, we have to look at the text of the passage, see it. All right, it's original, and the original manuscript has it in here. I'm going to look that up. I don't like the double accent, okay?
It has Pharisaion. Oh, Pharisaios. It does have two accents.
Yeah. And you're looking at Greek text right now?
Yeah, I'm looking at the BYZ and the BGT.
Is this the next word, Amy?
Pharisaios, Amy. Yeah. Ego, Pharisaios, Amy.
Does Amy have an accent mark on it like this?
On the I, on the first I, not on the second one.
Okay,
First iota. First iota.
this is the mistake. All right, I'll show you why it's enclitic right here. So that should be like this. Is that what you're saying? That you're looking at the Greek text.
Correct. Yeah. The BYC, it's that way.
This accent mark here got pulled off and put over here right there. So it's included. It butts up against it when it's pronounced. Or say, I'll see me. You pronounce them like they're one word or a hyphenated word, right?
I see.
So that's what it should be. And I knew the rules there. They shouldn't have had an accent mark on it. Thank you for looking it up. Okay. I was getting excited there about that a moment. Okay. So we have ego, a me. This is I am. This is I. I am. It's not stuttering. It's emphatic. So I would translate this. Even I am a Pharisee. Does that make sense? I would just put even I in there. Am a Pharisee. Now, Pharisee is in the nominative case. Why? Because a me has its object in the nominative case. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't understand the emphatic part though. Oh, just because it says ego.
Ego is automatically emphatic.
Gotcha.
Because you already got an I in this right here, so you got I twice.
Gotcha.
So that's emphasis for emphasis. It could be for contrast, but most of the time it's for emphasis. Okay. The word making the predicate, called the subject complement, it's also called predicate nominative. Like the subject is in the nominative case, and that's making the predicate. That's its object. Okay. The copula, and me is our copula, may also join a predicate adjective. So like I said a moment ago, it could be a predicate nominative, which would be a nominative case noun that's renaming the subject. Okay. Now, we could name a president. I was born during the time of President Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt. I could say Franklin Roosevelt was president, or president of the United States was serving in that office when I was born. And so Franklin Roosevelt, president, would have been, the word president would have been in the nominative case. It was this predicate nominative renaming telling who was president. All right. So right here, we could say Joe Biden, president of the United States, and then we would then have Joe Biden or Joseph Biden, and he is president, and so we'd have president as in a nominative case, and that would be good English. Okay.
Didn't quite catch that. If you wouldn't mind, sorry.
If I said Joe Biden, president of the United States, did so and so, okay, then Joe Biden is the name of the man, and president is. He is president of the United States. See, so by saying that, the word president would be in the nominative case in English. It's a predicate nominative. It renames or nominates, or the word nominative is to name. It renames the subject of the sentence.
Gotcha.
So that's what we have now. An adjective can do that as well. It can be a predicate adjective. So adjective can function like a noun, and in this case, in both English and in Greek, but more so probably in Greek, adjective can. The word saint is an adjective, not a noun. Okay, and we use the term. People use the term. I don't use it. Of course, they do use it. They'll call it Saint Peter. Okay, and you hear people use that term, and the word saint is being used as it's an adjective being used for a predicate adjective, basically. Okay, renaming him. Okay, but telling something about him at least. All right. The copula is not essential here. In other words, you don't have to have a me to have it. I am Pharisee. I Pharisee, by having just ego Phariseo, If you didn't have a me, you wouldn't have this accent mark. If you had that, that would still be a sentence, I, Pharisee. And that would be good Greek. It's basically saying, I am a Pharisee. But this, I am a Pharisee, I am. See, I am a Pharisee, and it's I, and even I, it's emphatic.
And that's why you differentiate it from what they're saying there is I am a Pharisee, because it's emphatic. Even I am a Pharisee.
Yes, and that would be better rendering, and it would get the thrust of what he's saying. And so Paul is saying, I am a Pharisee. Okay. So it can be a predicate adjective or a predicate complement. I want to call it predicate nominative most of the time. That's what it's called. But some grammarians will call it predicate subjective complement. Okay. It's a complement to the subject. Now this is complement, L-A-M-E-N-T, meaning it tells more or joins together and helps to explain further or works with the subject itself. In this case, nominating or renaming or telling more information. My illustration with Joe Biden, President of the United States, did such and such. I'm telling you more information about Joe Biden or Joseph Biden. I'm saying he's president of the United States. Laid all that information out. Any other questions there?
No, sir.
When two nouns are used in a sentence, one is the subject, the other is predicate. As predicate, subject may often be identified by having the article. So here's the difference. If you are seeing it and don't know whether it's the subject or the predicate nominative or subjective complement up here, same thing as predicate nominative. These are saying the same thing. If you don't want to know what's the subject and which one's the predicate, right here, normally in English, the subject will come first and the predicate nominative next. That's standard English. But here the rules are not standard. What we have is the subject has the article with it and the predicate nominative doesn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, gotcha.
John 1:1. Now, normally in Greek, most of the time, the rule is the subject comes first, the predicate nominative second. But it doesn't have to be. And when it's reversed, the order is reversed, it's emphatic. And what's emphatic was what got moved out of its proper, normal usual place. Okay. Whereas in English, the subject is always mentioned first because we don't inflect like we do in Greek. So we don't know the word God, for instance, is spelled the same way whether it's the subject or the object. So we don't change the spelling, inflect it. So we have to have the placement of where it's arranged to tell us, but Greek doesn't. So here, this is John 1:1. God was being. This is from a me. We'll get this in the next lesson. This is a me, but it's in the imperfect tense, which is like it's like a motion picture camera in the past. God was being, whole logos, the word. Or you would say the word was being God. And not the God, the article, but he was being deity. So what it's telling you is more something about the word. The predicate nominative is telling you that the word was being God. He was being deity because it's a predicate nominative. Does that help? This passage is misunderstood, particularly by our Jehovah's Witness friends. Okay?
Yeah.
They've missed the point that theos is a predicate nominative, so it's giving us more information about the subject, which is logos, the word. Does that make sense? Yeah, help a bit. So the word was being, this was a being verb, was being God. And this is past tense continuous durative action. It's imperfect tense. It's past tense, like the present tense is durative present action, if in the indicative mode. Any questions now?
No.
All right. So that's a real important verse. So it really tells us that Jesus in the past indefinite past doesn't tell us how far back in the past that went, but he was being deity. With the article, the word theos is usually the God. It's definite with the article. It is usually talking the contrast between the false gods and true gods. I don't think the word theos ever has the article in it when it is referring to a false god in the New Testament. I can't remember a passage where it is. I think it always has with the article, it's always the true God. Right? I stand to be corrected on that, okay? This is also enclitic, and so it can be enclitic, and what happens here is that loses its accent and it goes with that word before it. Remember, that was one of our rules, okay? Section Roman numeral 1. All right, that's how it lost it. And when it's pronounced, it's pronounced almost like it's a hyphenated word. Or say me. And you pronounce them pretty close together, like a hyphenated word. Any questions now? Just stop and ask questions if you got them, okay? All right. Now, we'll come back to this word later, but it is ame. It's a form of ame. Now, in clitics, we've talked about that. Personal pronouns. We're going to introduce personal pronouns now. It's a word used instead of a noun. If we just use the same noun over all the time, if you were writing about me and you said Marion did this, Marion did that, Marion, you kept saying Marion, but people get tired of hearing the name Marion. And so you'd substitute he or whatever for it. And that kind of breaks it up a bit. But a pronoun is a word used instead of a noun. It serves to avoid repetition of the noun. Personal pronouns will express a distinction of persons. Ego is I. Probably, I'm pretty sure, my memory is right. Ego, the word ego came from this word. Su, I think that's the Spanish word for you. Mi casa is su casa, a greeting, I think, in Spanish. My house is your house. You're welcome to my house. I think that's what it means. But again, I don't know that much Spanish.
Yeah, interesting. In Greek, it's the second person singular, whereas in Spanish, it'd be the third person singular. He, she, is su.
Okay. So that's you, second person. Autos, and our prefix auto, like automobile, automatic, that has come from this word auto. Auto with this is masculine, feminine, neuter forms. That's your three forms. It has all three forms. Autos is masculine, singular for he, and it could also be for the word self, depending on how it's used. We'll see that later. Auto is she. Auto is it. That's neuter. He, she, or it. Now, the word spirit, pneuma, is neuter, so the word for spirit, the pronoun for spirit would be in the neuter. Now, it doesn't mean the Holy Spirit is neuter. It's a gender thing. So kind of be aware of that. Some people will get all excited about that.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that in Romans 8:26. I was just having a discussion with somebody the other day about that verse, and it says it uses pneuma and the autos, and in a number of the versions it translates it as himself, and other versions translate it as itself. We know not a praise we ought, but the Spirit Himself makes intercession.
Okay. Do you have my notes on Romans?
I don't. Oh, I do on your Holy Spirit book, but I don't on. Do you actually have a Romans one?
Yeah. Okay. I'll send it to you after class tonight.
Okay. Yeah. a lot of people, yeah, they put the himself in their masculine, even though it doesn't have to be masculine.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Declension of the first person. This is some of your rules, explanation of the forms that we have that up here. And that goes to footnote number 1. That's this right here. It explains the rules, why these come out the way they did. But there's your root or stem. Some grammarians call it stem, some call it root. And I thought they were different, but I find grammarians that say they're different, some say that it's not different. So I'm not sure which one to believe, okay? Okay. I can't find any difference between a root and a stem, okay? But there seems to be, because some claim there is, but I can't figure out what it is, right? So, but these are the rules that they got, why the forms were different, right? So there's your stem right there, and the me ending, and it become this over here, okay? And S, there's your stem, and the C ending, the rule made it this. Does that make sense? That explains the rules, how they got the forms, okay? They're all enclitic except this one right here. All of them are enclitic except that one. Here's what will happen. I'll tell you why it's not enclitic. This is not enclitic because it really has, it would change the word. If it were enclitic, it would become a different word. Epsilon iota is the word if it has no accent, if it has just the smooth breathing mark. Let me put it here. I don't say if I had, I'll break it apart. This is the word if. So if I drop the circumflex off, I'd have the word if. It'll be a different word. And so it can't lose its accent mark, or it'll turn into a different word. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the reason it doesn't. So the rules generally apply, but if it would make it into a different word, that would cause confusion. So that's why it says except this one, and that's the reason it doesn't. Right? All right. Declension of first person ego, and it's found the singular 1,718 times. That means it's a pretty important word to learn, okay? And plural form, hey, mace, that's nominative plural, singular, plural. And it is 864 times. That's enough to want to learn it too. But put them together, you got nearly 3,000 times, okay? 2,500 or maybe 2,600 times approximately. All right, I just did rough math on it, around 2,600. Ego, nominative, and genitive. Notice there are two forms. Interesting. Well, here's the thing about this. A moo is the same word as moo. The difference in them is moo is enclitic. It lost all of its accent marks. So a moo, it keeps its accent marks, means of me, in genitive form, or from me, it could be ablative, but it's emphatic. In this form here, 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 and here, it's emphatic. In these forms that don't have accent marks on them, it's not emphatic. That's the difference. Does that make sense?
Okay.
The accented form is generally more emphatic or is used in contrast. Most of the time it's emphasis. It could be contrast, however. You might have a moo and moo together or something like that, right? All right, so, but that's emphatic. Now, if you look up ego in the lexicon, they'll tell you that ego by itself is emphatic. And hemes is also, this plural form is emphatic. Both these forms are emphatic when they're found. The reason being the verb already has its pronouns attached to it. Remember that from the rules. So it it would be the subject of the verb. Now, the reason the nominative is the only one that's emphatic by nature is because it renames the subject. And so if you had it in the genitive case, it wouldn't be renaming the subject. And so, let's go back up to the one up here for example. All right, ego, eimi. And so, eimi is a verb, and it has its subject will be in the nominative case. So its subject is always in the nominative case. It's a finite verb will have it. See, it's got finite. It has all of the forms. So its subject is in the nominative case. So if we have ego with it, eimi already has I in it, built into it, because the ending is I. And so you doubled up, you got I twice there, which is automatically emphatic. I is not stuttering. Does that make sense now? Any question?
Maybe a little bit of confusion. So you're saying ego by itself is emphatic.
Ego wouldn't be by itself. Ego would have to have something it's referring to. So it's going to have a verb to go with it. And ego eimi is automatically emphatic. So I speak. Ego lego, I speak. It's emphatic.
Gotcha.
Lego, or if you had some other verb, omega verb or something like that, I walk. Peripateo, I walk around. Ego peripateo, I walk around. And it's I walk around. I serve. And duluo or whatever. Ego duluo, I serve. And it's emphatic. All right. So it automatically becomes emphatic because the verb has that I in it built into it. A finite verb does. Does that make sense now? Is that better?
Yep, gotcha.
As the old country boy said, is that more better? Okay. So only the nominatives are emphatic. So some people, I've had some people say, well, why aren't the other ones emphatic? Because they don't rename the subject. They don't. The subject of that finite verb is right at the end of the verb. It already has a subject there, and you're given that subject all over again. But these other cases wouldn't rename the subject because that's the object here. These are the dative, instrumental, locative, indirect object or instrument or locative case. This is the source or origin usually. Genitive is the genus or the kind or the of case. A relation generally.
So the plural does not have the emphatic like the singular does?
Yeah, this plural does, nominative plural.
Nominative only, though?
Only the nominative singular, nominative plural are emphatic. But the other cases are not. Okay, they serve a different function. They don't serve to rename the subject. They can't be the subject. Now, we have some rules we can do it with participles. So we can make the participles, these pronouns can go with the participle. Right? So that gets it very complicated. The language can be very, very complex and form some very interesting arrangements of sentences. Okay. So that's what we get into there. We'll get to participles. That'll come much, much later. Okay, we'll get to them later. But they're very important. Okay. But that's what I'm saying. And Sue also nominative. It also is emphatic. Sue and humace. And that's humace, rough breathing. That's nominative plural. Okay, let's go back up here now. Ego, emu, or mu, that's emphatic. Emu, a moi, and a moi. A me, and again, that's emphatic. And the plural, you don't have separate forms for them. Okay. Right? So the singular can be emphatic. Right? But it tells you that down here. If you have my notes that I sent you on Greek grammar and Greek grammar notes and lexicon and grammar notes, I think, uh, it has, you find these pronouns, you'll find it tells you, gives you several sources that tell you they're emphatic. But our book tells you that they are also. All right. Any other questions? All right. All right. Declension in the second person pronoun Sue, you, it's singular. It's found 1,067 times. And in the plural, it's found 1,800 more times in the plural than in the singular. All right. So that's, if you take that, that's close to 28, 29, about 2,900 times, close to 3,000 times. Again, that makes this important enough to learn it, because you're going to find it on virtually every page of the New Testament, probably more than once. Okay. So you got 3,000 times. You don't have 3,000 pages in the New Testament. I don't think. I don't think mine does. Okay. That'd be an awfully large print. All right. Sue, and then Sue, Sue. Again, the difference is this is emphatic form. And Sue, Sue, Sue. And then Sue, soy, 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 soy. Nominative, genitive, ablative, dative, instrumental, locative. Am I going too rapidly through that by any chance?
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. You're fine. I think you're right.
Genitive would be Sue, that's emphatic, or Sue, and that's not emphatic. In this genitive case, you.
So basically, you're placing more emphasis by stressing the diphthong.
Sue, Sue, and I just place a little more emphasis on it because it's got the accent mark. Now, what would happen is it's enclitic, so it loses its accent that goes with the word before it. And we could get an arrangement like we had up here. Let's go back.
First one.
Yeah, right here, where that accent mark wound up over here, and this has two accent marks on it. Right. Then that would be really emphatic right here. Very sigh-ois. Very sigh-ois. You accent both syllables. Very sigh-ois, me. And you hyphenate it. It looks like it's hyphenated. That's what I've been told you're supposed to pronounce it as. All right. Now we have soy. And again, I try to make a distinction, but I doubt that I'm doing very well at it. But soy. And again, it'll be enclitic. It'll butt up against the word like it's hyphenated with it. And soy. Dative, that's the indirect object. The two are to you. For instance, I say to you, okay, to you. All right. Instrument is to you, with you, or by means of you. All right. Locative is in you, or it could be among you. And here's the thing. I think over here, I'll make a distinction. In the English, we would normally say in you for something that's basically inside you, or pretty much if it's taking it literal. If it's plural, something wouldn't be in everybody unless maybe it was a virus or something, But so a lot of times that would be translated maybe among you, in you or among you, right? Plural. But again, he's showing it in you, but I think probably among you might fit better a lot of times. Then we have the accusative case, say, and that's accusative case, the receiver of the action of a finite verb. We have the plural, humes, notice the rough reading, humes, you, who moan, of you, genitive, who moan, from you, acute, ablative. Again, you don't know what these are except by context. Now, there are some prepositions that take only the genitive, some that take only the ablative. Okay, so that would that could tell you as well. If it's source or origin, it's going to be ablative. And some of the grammarians, you don't look to them because they all are 5-case men. Every not grammarians, lexicographers. The lexicographers are almost all are 5-case men. In other words, they don't make a distinction between genitive and ablative case. They'll have the genitive of relationship and genitive of source. Well, for crying out loud, the genitive source thing is ablative. So they're not really making a distinction as to cases. They're subdividing it as a source or ablative. Some of them even say ablatival genitive. Okay, some would even call it that. So you got to be careful. Someone said, "Well, the Thayer says this is genitive," but he may be calling it the ablatival genitive or the genitive of origin or source, which would be ablative for us. Okay. Well, I'm going to go with the 8 cases. I know that they battle back and forth on it. I've done some writing on it a little bit, not much. I'm not a scholar, but I've written on my thoughts on it. And I think you may have them in some of the material that you have, okay?
Yeah, I've seen one material that I was reading that combined the dative, instrumental, and locative and just called them all dative as well.
Yes, that's true. That's your 5 cases: nominative, genitive, dative, locative, accusative. Nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative. Okay, that's your 5 cases. If you got 5-case system, and so I'll go with 8 cases: nominative, genitive, ablative, dative, instrumental, locative, accusative, and vocative case. Okay, you don't have a vocative pronoun. So you don't have a vocative case pronoun. Okay. Yeah. All right. So who mace, nominative, who moan, genitive, ablative, who mean, dative, instrumental, locative, who moss, that's you, accusative, that's the direct object. Okay. We are getting pretty close to the time to be through with the class. Why don't we stop there and see if you have any questions, any more questions?
I don't think so right now. Maybe just after it sinks in a little bit more.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll start with number 90. I want to pick something up here. We have some forms down here: Hoday, Heyday, and Today, but these don't have to be nominative case. It could be plural. It could be nominative plural, for example, and it could you could have the nominative plural. Right here's the nominative plural. See, that's plural. It's still the same as this up here, Hoday. That makes sense, right? So, Hoday, that's nominative, singular, nominative plural article, and this is Hoday, nominative singular article. Basically, still saying the same thing. So this will be used as the 3rd person, and this will be singular, but this will be 3rd person plural, right? That's how you use it. So when you get to that, kind of make a note of that. This is hoy or men. Men is an emphatic term, or they. And of course, they're translated some and others. This is some and this is others, right? All right, we'll come back to number 90. I thought I'd point that out because you could miss the point that this is just the plural, but it's the same principle as this up here. Let's start with number 90 next week. Let me get out of it and stop the recording.